Dr. Wendy Walsh, I'm so glad to connect with you for a very short, fast action show, which is turns out to be your specialty. I was going to ask you what you've been up to, but I know now you've been acquiring a freaking million TikTok followers. That's sensational.
A year ago when I hired a professional social media manager, after only using social media to put up like pictures of my kids or whatever, she said, "Oh, you need to have a TikTok channel." And I'm like, "Isn't that for dancing teenagers?" She said, "No, doctors are on there all the time. Just do what you do on the radio, but do it in short little TikTok videos." And boom, in 1 year, from 0 followers to 1 million. And that does change your life a bit.
That's what I love about you is you have this incredible research background in evolutionary psychology, and this is not just fun and game stuff, but you distill it to the average person in these memorable takeaways. And now I think this is our fourth show. We've talked about so much, but there's always some fun, exciting new stuff to pull out of you. And I have, of course, a bunch of notes, but I'm just happy to check in with you. Tell us how that growth has been and what you've been focused on lately.
Well, what I'm learning is a lot about what people are going through. And I love the engagement. I love to read the comments. I try to answer as many as I can. This time of COVID really amplified our isolation. Largely, our relationship problems have led to our mental health issues and our addiction issues. It's all connected, and our physical health issues. We're wired to bond. We need social support. We should be living in multi-generational clans, but we're alone in our living rooms on Zoom. We've got virtual friends. We're meeting strangers on dating apps. All of that raises your cortisol levels. On top of that, part of the human mating game is deception, right? At the very beginning, we all deceive each other just a little bit. I mean, a push-up bra is a deception, right? A man who takes a picture for his dating app in front of a sports car he doesn't own is deception.
Ooh, that's a big deception. Come on, that's way worse than a push-up bra.
Oh no, I was
at
goodness. LAX one day, and there was a Testarossa park there, and all these young guys were asking the owner, could they take a picture in front of the car? It was a lineup of guys. So unfortunately, there are some people who prey on others using the drug called love. And so I'm finding in my followers, especially with the women, huge amounts of financial abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse. And my heart is breaking for them. But the more I hear from them, you probably know TikTok is a very authentic, open, intimate kind of social media. It's not like a bunch of posers on Instagram. And I've been sharing stories of my life, which helps me feel connected to them and them connected to me. And so that's really, if in one word, if somebody said, how did you blow up on TikTok in 1 year? I would say it's the relationships I have with my followers.
Wow, that's great. And I really appreciate that interaction you had when someone was teasing you for showing off with your fabulous new Tesla, where we've recorded 2 podcasts inside, I believe. So it's definitely a worthwhile business write-off for you. But it just kind of lends itself to realizing that everything we see is the tip of the iceberg, even Dr. Wendy showing off her fabulous new car. And then you proceeded to relate to everybody how far you've come and the struggles that you've endured. And guess what? You deserve a freaking awesome car and you work super hard and all that. And I don't think we see that direction as much as we should. And in realizing and appreciating and being grateful for even when you exist in abundance, that's wonderful. And it's okay.
Well, to look at anybody's life as a slice, even if you see someone being quote unquote a bad parent in public, look at their life as a slice and then generalize it to their entire persona and their values and their morals is wrong. Okay, we can't do that. And so you're referring to a comment that somebody made that they called me a show off because I did a video in my car. And I said, I have not forgotten that I was once a single mother in a studio apartment with no job. I haven't forgotten the day that there was a grocery store cart full of food and a screaming 2-year-old. I think she was actually throwing up that day too. And every credit card I had declined. I haven't forgot that I was knocked unconscious in my own kitchen by the father of my children. I haven't forgot all those years. But what I try to show my followers is that I represent the light at the end of their tunnel. And that now, years afterwards, I own property. Yes, I drive a Tesla. My daughter went to Harvard. And I did it all without the help of any man during patriarchy. Not going to lie to you, it was fucking tough. But I'm here to say it can be done. I have great compassion and empathy for anyone of any gender going through any abuse in their relationships. And I've got the science and the life experience to help them get to the other side.
Do you think this abuse and manipulation is getting worse? Is it possibly related to quarantine and our desperation to connect? Or is this has it always been there and it's being more highlighted now?
Well, I think it's a combination of you use the word desperation, but our most basic human need for attachment. And the fact that technology hasn't gotten us any closer. It's created a veil of separation that allows the deceivers to operate better, whether it's romance scams or people. I don't know if you've seen the Netflix documentary, The Tinder Swindler. Oh my goodness. That guy had girlfriends in 5 or 6 different cities, and he was borrowing money from them, pretending to be a billionaire's son and using one woman's money to wine and dine another woman. And it just went on and on and on. And these poor young women went into bankruptcy because of love.
That's pretty heavy. Clearly that's out on the extreme sociopath example. But I also wonder, are some people doing this unwittingly, where they're engaging with multiple prospects online, and then they can't bring themselves to be honest, and they're just going down these roads where they're kind of drifting down without noticing or something?
Well, I will say this about the dating apps. We all suffer from something called a paradox of choice, that the more choice you have, the less likely you are to make a choice. And if you do make a choice, you don't value that choice very much. So I will say there's a lot of dating apathy on those apps where people are messaging and talking and juggling a whole bunch of fantasy people in a way, and not either meeting them in the real world, or when they do date them, not making a commitment to anyone because they're so afraid that they're letting a bigger, better deal go away. And so I think that it does take some presence of mind. It takes some self-discipline. Otherwise, the app is going to biohack your brain. And there are tips and tricks to using the dating apps in a safe way.
So what do we do to stay away from that ridiculous roller coaster where you're always 1 foot out the door, 1 foot off the roller coaster ride, thinking that you're going to do better, or whatever the thought is, I guess?
Where you get off the apps and you focus on one person.
Mm.
And then when it peters out, you move on to the next. In other words, like, you spend some time assessing a particular mate, not just answering a bunch of texts that's going to give you a dopamine rush for nothing.
And back to your evolutionary psychology roots, is it okay that we can exist for the next 20, 30 years of our life in a succession of 2-year relationships, and the excitement wears off and then we proceed to the next one? I mean, you say that there's no rules and all these, awakenings that we have in present day. But I'm wondering if, we're going to be in conflict with our desire to bond for long term, or is it entirely individual?
Okay, so Homo sapiens have the widest range of sexual behavior of any primate species. In one mating marketplace, there's going to be somebody looking for a super short-term relationship called a hookup, and somebody else who's going to look for lifelong monogamy. What is normal for us, or natural for us, as people ask me all the time, for the vast majority of people, is a series of serial monogamy. Remember, when our hunter-gatherers got together, they stayed, the bonding and the love and the feeling and the attachment lasted long enough to get kids up and out of the nest. But kids were up and out of the nest and procreating after about 12 or 13 years. So now what it takes to raise a kid is 4 years of college, getting their life, getting settled. So it may be 20 years or more that you need to stay together. Add to that the fact that our life expectancies are just continuing to extend. So even the most monogamous of human beings may find themselves having 2 or even 3 stints of long-term monogamy with some mate selection in between. So answer is, are we tiring easily of, if your question is, do we tire easily of partners because there seems to be more mating opportunity out there? Some people will be vulnerable to that because again, in our hunter-gatherer past and what our DNA is wired for, we never laid eyes on more than about 150 people in our entire lifespan. And so the idea that thousands of new potential romantic mates are, and for those 150 people, most of them were related to us, that we would be exposed to thousands of potential romantic mates daily is messing with our biology.
And there are numerous other areas where our biology is in conflict with the incredibly evolved and progressive modern culture. What are some other red flags we need to watch out for, where I think I can guess some of your answers, but the free and liberated modern human is still walking around in conflict with these basic biological drives and the male-female archetypes?
Yeah, people hate me for this because they don't like me to show them their biology in the mirror, but sex is a much higher risk hobby for women. Our bodies haven't changed. Women, because of their very unique biology, are much likely to contract an STI. They're more likely to fall in love through sex than men are because their bodies emit so much of the bonding hormone oxytocin during sex. And they're more likely to contract an 18-year case of parenthood. So as a result, women have this misguided idea that female sexual freedom is behaving like what they think a man behaves like. And by the way, we have the widest range of male sexual behavior. So if you think that all men will take all sex and any sex at any cost, you don't know men, right? And so women are emulating that and then wondering why they can't, quote unquote, find a commitment-oriented man. And they're using short-term strategies for long-term goals. That's the biggest problem. And I think female sexual freedom is learning how to respect our very precious and unique biology, understanding the mechanisms, the hormonal mechanisms at play, and also thinking about what your relationship life plan is. Like, I hear people of all genders say things like, if it happens, or if I meet the right person, if, it's like saying, if I go to college, or if I get a job. No, you make plans to do all those things and do all the things you need to make that happen, right? So the same with your relationship life plan. It's not an if, it's when I decide to engage in this behavior.
Wow. Okay. So let's say we are successful. We found a mate. We're going along. There's a honeymoon period. You've cited the different research. Different people are saying that the first 12 months or the first 24 months are a chemical storm of hormones, and you're not making reasonable judgments. You're just going along for the ride, and then things settle into normal, ordinary routine. You're looking at the long-term consequences, and how do we preserve that excitement, that spark, that romantic passion that allowed us to come together in the first place?
Yeah, love is very much like a drug. And in fact, it uses the same brain processes as a drug addiction. So if you think about it this way, when you first start to use a drug, it feels really great. And then you want more and more and more of it. You want to see that person more and more and more, and maybe even move in with them, right? You want to move in with your drug. And so after a while, the drug doesn't work. You build up something called a tolerance. And then you're just having to take the drug continually because the withdrawal symptoms are so bad. And that is exactly what love is. And so love is a drug. And at a certain point, we need more and more and more of it until it doesn't feel as exciting anymore. But the thought of separation, it hurts so much more. And so how can we get the feeling of the drug back? And it's about adding novelty to your relationship. Taking your partner to different places, doing different things together, changing the schema so that they look as a different person, right? That is super important that you work on novelty. Routine is the death of love, right? So you have to mix it up. Now, too much novelty, of course, can be a threat in your relationship. I'm not suggesting you go out to nightclubs and dance with a people all night, but you might try skydiving. I don't know, adding a little bit of excitement. And then the other thing is I want you to continually get to know your partner, because guess what? That person you married is not the same person 10 years later. Like literally every cell in their body has changed and replicated. They're literally a different person. And they should be changing and growing across the lifespan. And so should you. So it's about spending time continuing to get to know your new and ever-changing partner. But what we do is we'll like go change on the side. We don't let our partner know how much we've changed because we'll stay in the routine with our partner because we fear they'll hate us or abandon us because of our change. So we go off and change in another room. And then one day we go, hey, who I am now doesn't fit this relationship. You forgot to adjust the relationship while you changed. All right.
I guess sometimes that could be difficult because everyone's used to the familiar patterns. And so it might take some good communication, experimentation. The novelty could be thrown right in there as a catalyst for change.
At the end of the day, it's always emotional intimacy that is both the glue, the exploration, the excitement, the connection. And people will say, what's emotional intimacy, Dr. Wendy? And if you have to answer that question or have to ask me that question, then I know that in your family of origin, you were not given language for feelings, or you were not told that any feelings except happiness are allowed in the public areas of the house, right? And so you are terrified. You walk around with a fake persona of happiness, and you are terrified to speak your truth. Or maybe you have an anxious attachment style and you fear abandonment so much that if you cause any problems and bring up your authenticity, that they'll leave you in some way. And this is how people get stuck in these patterns that become boring.
Wow. And it does go back to that attachment style. We covered that a lot in a previous show, but I guess we could recap a little bit the importance of understanding where you're coming from and why you might be playing out these patterns.
Yeah, so we have this model for love, this idea about what love should be. Excuse me, all the shoulds we have, and we have ways out of our unconsciousness of choosing partners who will replicate that feeling of love. All is very well and good if the love you experience, this model of love that happened, got shaped in your first 3 years of life, if that model of love is filled with peace, security, safety, trust, and joy. But if in your unconscious memory, love was filled with feelings of loss or criticism or abandonment or hurt, then you will go out and find partners who will behave that way because that's normal to you.
I guess each time that happens, starting from your earliest romantic relationship.
Oh, it starts in middle school. Yeah.
Right. You're going to create these patterns and be more likely to
the patterns become reinforced. They become reinforced. Exactly. So people will say to me, oh, I'm with this boyfriend, but he has all these trust issues, excuse me, because of his ex-girlfriend or because of his past relationships. And I'm like, nope, he doesn't have trust issues because of that. He has trust issues because of what happened at the cradle, right? And so it all starts at the beginning. And then what we do is we keep replicating it. Can you change those patterns? Absolutely. Can you heal? Absolutely. But you have to become conscious of the issue. Brad, can I share with you, I don't know if I have before, the 3 stages of personal change about the hole in the road. Did I ever tell you that metaphor?
I don't think so.
Okay. I just ate some whole milk yogurt with some grain-free granola and some blueberries. And the yogurt seems to have caused something in my throat. Or maybe it was all the nuts.
Oh, the back-to-back shows could be a factor too.
And the fact I've been talking since 6 a.m. Okay, and it's almost noon. Okay, so imagine that your attachment injury that makes you choose partners that are wrong for you is a hole in the middle of the street. So stage 1, you're walking down the street, you don't see the hole, you fall in it. Stage 2, somebody tells you about attachment theory. You learn a little bit about your attachment style. So now you go walking down the street and now you see that hole and you recognize it and you fall in it. Stage 3 is you walk down that street, you see the hole, you recognize it, and you very carefully use your conscious mind to step carefully around that hole. And stage 4 is to take a different street.
Oh, sorry. I don't see any relevance to my personal life. No, you got me there. No, I can't. I don't know what you're talking about. What hole?
And
Wow,
usually
that's heavy.
people who follow me on social media are at stage 2 or 3.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
The ones who are at stage 1 say, that's a bunch of baloney, or I can't believe you are taking your immoral choices and blaming your attachment style. There's people who believe in right or wrong. They don't understand how the unconscious works. Those are my stage 1 people.
Greetings, stage oneers. How are you this morning?
Exactly.
It's another wonderful sunny day. Everything's perfect. Yeah.
If you just do the right thing as your religion and the laws say, then you will be happy, right? That's stage 1. It's like God is this cop in the sky and institutions and structures have rules to keep people safe. Don't bother me with anything going on in the unconscious. Then stage 2 is, oh my God, you just explained my whole life. How do I fix this? Stage 3 is, I went on a date last night. I knew this guy was so bad for me. I slept with him anyway. What do I do now? Can I convert it into a long-term relationship or is it a hookup? And I go, that you're in stage 3. We're going to take another street with a different guy on another day. Okay. Or you're going to, the next time that guy triggers, or woman triggers those feelings of anxiety in you in the early stages, you're not going to sleep with them. You're going to say, I gotta go. You're not for me.
That takes a lot of strength, a lot of awareness. I mean, the hole's a giant hole in the street. It's easy to fall into, it seems. And boy, this is great. We're talking about relationships, your area of expertise, but where does it not apply in life and everything, your financial matters and your career path and
your diet, exercise.
Right. How come I keep getting beat in my sport of choice? Something's wrong. I'm blaming the outside world typically, right? When we fall in that hole, it's the construction worker didn't put a big enough sign up or what have you. It's not anything about my attachment style. That's ridiculous.
No, actually, once you learn about attachment style, it becomes a lens to look through for every single interpersonal relationship, whether it's a workplace relationship, whether it's your family members. You will start to see, you'll say, they trigger me. Well, what are they triggering? What attachment thing is coming up for you? But you will start to look at it like, I will meet new people. I can tell in about 60 seconds what their attachment style is. I can tell.
You're talking about you personally.
Yeah.
You can tell in 60 seconds. Oh boy, wouldn't that be intimidating people if
All
you
I
want
have
to try to date Wendy Walsh? Oh my gosh, bring your A game.
You're right. All I have to do is say something authentic and vulnerable about me, and I watch their reaction. If they make a joke, if they're dismissive, if they change the subject, there we have an avoidant person. If they reciprocate with, oh my God, the same thing happened to me, you wouldn't believe, and then I see the anxiety, right? If instead they are their own separate person and they look at me and show compassion without putting their anxiety into it, like, wow, that must have been so hard for you. It's hard for me to imagine because I haven't had that happen in my life. Then there's somebody with a secure attachment style. They want to be able to give the care, but not get sucked down into it.
Explain that second reaction again.
So the anxious person is going to totally collude. They're attaching to me in the emotional story because they need to get close and they fear abandonment. So they immediately come up with a tragic story about them that's similar, and their eye contact is such, and they're so connected with me. And it's like anxiety about, I have to get close to this person. Right, because when you show an emotional vulnerability, it's an open door. Come into my mind, come into my soul, come in. And then you watch how people, do they walk through the door? Do they shut the door? Right? Do they stand on their own side of the door and say, I can see you, but I'm not coming in there. There's some crazy in there.
So those were the three main
Those are three main
attachment
categories,
styles.
but you know, the truth is it's a long continuum scale. I mean, to put us into simple little categories does an injustice to what it is to be a human being.
I suppose there's occasions where I'm going to exhibit the avoidant behavior, right? And then other times where I might be in whatever it is, it's a different comment from a different
Yeah.
person. And
Again,
yeah.
unfair to judge about a slice. However, having said that, since I have an anxious attachment style, one of the things that people with an anxious attachment style have is they're highly perceptive to the emotions and feelings of others. They're very empathetic. They're very compassionate. They read people because often in their childhood, there was inconsistency of caregiving. And so they're always, as their brain was developing as a child, maybe it's somebody who had alcoholic parents or there and gone parents, you know. So they're always trying to read them. Is it safe? What do I have to do? Are they drunk? Are they sane? Are they good? What's going to happen here?
Mm-hmm.
And that happens during the developmental years while their brain is, you know, growing. And so people with an anxious attachment style have huge, huge powers of perception.
And so it becomes a potential area of weakness, vulnerability, whatever you want to call it, when it's overboard, your empathy or your
or a strength. Like I think what we have to be really clear about in all of this is to put no judgment. There's no good or bad associated with attachment styles. Really important. The person who has an avoidant attachment style needs to be avoidant because that's a safe place for them. And we need to respect that. However, if their sense of self is triggering the anxious person and they're in a romantic relationship together, they have to make a decision to, you know, become conscious of what they're doing or separate. Otherwise, they're just going to continue to hurt each other, right? So every attachment style has function. So the highly perceptive one makes a great doctor, a great therapist, a great social worker, a great teacher, a great politician who can read the room, right? An avoidant one makes a great lawyer in a courtroom. Yeah, I'm going to send that person to jail, but I can deal with that. I'm not going to let that feeling creep up, right? They make a good judge. They make sometimes a very good preacher because they're all about that right and wrong. Don't worry, but don't touch anything tender in there. And then what else? And then the secure person, of course, is going to sometimes have a job that's not hugely fulfilling because they have such fulfilling social relationships with their family and friends, and they're coaching the little league team, and they've got such a big life outside of the warehouse that they work in.
Right.
Because they have a secure attachment style.
Right. Everything's okay. They don't have that burning
competitive. They don't need to come to Hollywood and have an audience. Right. They don't need to go on TikTok and get 1 million followers. They're perfectly happy.
It's just, yeah, everything's fine. I love it. Yeah, that's part of not judging, because I think we're so caught up in the consumerism and the measuring and judging of all the ways that we're measured and judged today, that you can fall prey to that and be forever unhappy or unfulfilled as you continue to gain a following or earn more money or whatever it is.
And people with a secure attachment style also might look at you and I and say, why are those performer people? Why does he need to achieve so much in athletics? Why do they need a podcast? Why does she need that TikTok? That's so weird. Why would they do that?
Yeah.
It's confusing to them.
Don't judge, people. Don't judge.
Don't judge.
As promised, this has been a fast-moving show. Listeners, this is at least an hour-long normal show, but we've just gone so hard. It's incredible. And I want to, I know we have to wrap up shortly, but you mentioned putting that novelty into the relationship. And that was number 5 out of the 5 tips of the free couples therapy that you provided on one of your TikTok posts. So if we have time, I'd love for you to go over the previous 4 and then ending with that fun, excitement, novelty.
Let's see if I can remember them all.
I got you covered if not, but the first one was catch them being good, which is such a cool concept.
Important is that what happens when we compliment our partners on the daily is we do 2 things. We enliven the highest parts of them, right? They start to behave like a better person because we're speaking to the highest parts of their personality. And secondly, we remind our own brain of why we were there in the first place, what we love about our partner. When you start to spiral down into what have you done for me lately? And criticism and negativity, that grows in your relationship. Okay, what was number 2?
Yeah, just before we leave that point, that's so powerful because it's like anything we verbalize, we kind of manifest that type of experience in our personality. So if we're complaining about the traffic in Los Angeles, rather than, I was just talking to my daughter last night, like, you know how many freaking freeways are here and how awesome that is, because you can go anywhere and there's a freeway. It might be going 30 miles an hour, but try going on stoplights. It's a wonderful gift, even if it's full.
It's so
Anyway.
true. I do want to say that about what you were expanding on, is that there are lots of brains in the room listening. And, my favorite example, I can't remember which psychologist I heard use this example on a podcast. I should credit it, but I love it. And he said, I have a dog. The dog knows the word walk. And I could be having any conversation with anybody in a room. And if I mention the word walk, he jumps up and down. And so in the same way, if you remind your brain of why you love, your brain will jump up and down with happiness because you'll be triggered. But if you're always criticizing, all the brains in the room will activate. Their neurochemistry will activate based on those words. Their bodies will activate based on those words. All the brains in the room, your kids, your partner, and your brain.
Heavy, right?
Huge.
Okay, catch them being good. Number 1. Number 2 is reflective listening.
This is so important. I cannot believe how many people do not to practice. I call it emotional mirroring or reflective listening. It means that you, when your partner is bringing up something tender, and again, they may have difficulty expressing tender things, so it may often come off said in a kind of angry voice, rather than you using your brain to be busy thinking of a defense. I want you to think of your brain as a translator and say, what are they really saying? And then feed back to them exactly what they said to you in different words. If you're not good at translating yet, you can even feed back their same words back with different pronouns. So if they say, I get pissed when you're always parked in my spot and I come in and I can't fit in the driveway, you could say, I can see it really makes you angry when I do that. Boom, they're heard. And that de-escalates the emotions in the minute. And then, of course, it's always nice if it's followed up with, I'm sorry. What can I do to repair?
Right. If you can spit that out, that helps. Yeah. Okay, we're getting to the finish line. We have catch them being good. We have reflective listening. And then we have number 3 is schedule everything, including everything, says Dr. Wendy.
Including sex. Here's what happens. You get busy in your life with your partner. You're raising kids. You're going to work. You're paying mortgages. You're running to the gym. You're going to pick up the laundry. You're cooking dinners. And before you know it, you get on an automatic routine. And you forget to schedule into that routine time for intimacy. I mean, emotional intimacy and physical intimacy. You and your partner should have 20 minutes a day with no screens, no distractions to talk. Or
what? 20 minutes? Oh my goodness.
It's not a lot. And somebody's pinging me because I'm sorry, is that pinging showing up? Because I can't turn it off on my computer. Okay, so that's really important that you schedule sex for sure, because for women, foreplay can take 3 days, literally. There's some personal hygiene and grooming involved. We have to make sure the childcare is set up. The bedroom's got to be spotless. I mean, honestly, you can't relax if there's a pile of laundry in the corner to fold, truthfully. So you need to plan on Wednesday for Saturday night sex, and you got to set everything up for it. That is not unromantic, because after the sex is over, I want you two to look in each other's eyes and tell me that wasn't romantic. Okay, tell me now that you've got all those hormones happening.
Oh, it's the dopamine starts to come in as soon as you schedule it, because the anticipation is where the strongest influence of dopamine is. I love it. That was number 3. And then seemingly closely related is the digital detox.
Yeah, you really need time with no screens in your families. The amount of people that have cell phones at the dinner table is shocking to me. One recent study showed that millennials, 10% of them said they've even checked text while having sex. Okay, like if there's one time you want to be focused on the other person, that would be it, right? So we really need to make time and make a digital structure. We call it digital hygiene. And we all need to program or be programmed.
Love it. That brings us back to number 5, having fun and bringing novelty into the relationship.
Don't forget to have fun. And sometimes you have to jump through some hoops to find it. For instance, my boyfriend, who's actually on the East Coast taking care of an elderly father right now, came back for a weekend. Now, we didn't need to do anything because he hadn't been here for a couple of weeks. We could have just watched movies, Netflix and chill, hung out and be happy to spend time with each other. But he's like, we need to do something novel because I listen to Dr. Wendy Walsh. Like, really? And we found a jazz club. We got a socially distanced table. We had a great meal. We danced together and laughed together. And it was like, it was a whole new relationship just because, and yeah, we had to drive further than normal, spend a little more money than we planned on, but it was so worth it.
Oh my gosh, what a fantastic way to wrap up the show. We're so happy to connect with you again. Dr. Wendy Walsh doing her thing. Go follow her on TikTok, of course. And where else should we connect with you?
I am building a wonderful community on Patreon. I call it my Patreon Love Warriors. And for that, you simply go to Patreon, Patreon, patreon.com/Dr. Wendy Walsh. Behind there, you're going to find my podcast, Mating Matters. You're going to find all my books. You're going to find private Zoom rooms where I meet with people and talk about their relationship stuff. Also, there's a love science education program where I do actually university level lectures on the science of love. So, for as little as $4 a month, come and join my Patreon.
Oh, I'm in. Come on, people. As little as $4 a month. That's not even a Starbucks, the usual reference point.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. I think those pings were like brain programming, so I would never forget those 5 tips. So I appreciate that in the show too. Everything's great when we connect with you. Wendy Walsh doing her thing. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Good to see you, Brad.
Dun, 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 dun.